Hey everybody, it's Marty the JavaScript Party. Rhett is out in the living room. Like I mentioned in the last video, she really wanted to stay in her cage. She probably would have come out if I'd have gone out there again to try to get her. But when I tried to get her in earlier, she wanted to stay in her cage because she had just gotten fresh food. She gets fresh food probably most days, like right after these shows. So like I bring her in and I give her a thing and a peanut or something, and then she'll, or one of her nuts or whatever, and then she'll, kind of hang out with me. And then right after the show, my wife is usually, getting ready for the day, and that's when she usually gets fed. But today was running late, so I ended up trying to do it after she got fed, and she's like, "No, thank you. I'd rather just stay in my cage." So that's good. Um, Anyways, probably doing like probably the least fun thing in software development, and that's like retrofitting or refactoring so that we can get a broader base. Um, and most of the work that we're doing is kind of like it would be really easy to kind of delude yourself and say, hey, we should have already had this done. But honestly, like trying to create solutions before the problem is often way worse than just solving the solution when the problem actually presents. So that's where we're at right now. So the problem that we're trying to fix, or the new feature that we're trying to implement, is and it's so important to be careful about that. Like, you don't want to say that you're fixing a problem, a bug, when it's a new feature, even if it's like obviously we should have done this. It's still like it's not obvious before you saw the latest code. But as we're building things out, we're kind of going through a sort of a process of seeing how the existing code works and then realizing, oh, now that we're going to kind of scale up and do this in multiple places, we need to expand the foundation of this thing. And fortunately, in code at this state, it's possible. You can get to the point where you just can't expand the foundation anymore because any changes to the foundation have a ripple effect that's impossible to undo. And the problem is building a foundation and then finding out, oh wait, like we laid part of this foundation because we wanted to put something here, and now you know what, we don't even want that thing anymore, or we actually want that in a different place, is way worse than not building it. So I know I've worked in places where they were like architecture first, like architecture, and then like they build out the whole architecture, and then people start actually making the code work, and then you end up with like function names that have nothing to do with what the code in there is doing. And that is one of the most crazily bizarre things. And it leads to a massive disconnect between um, like the technical leadership and the technical workers. The technical leadership, they go look at a function that's named like, uh, you know, uh, tokenize template. And then you go in there and all there is code that handles, you know, reading from some remote server, and there's absolutely no tokenization or anything to do with the template in there. Um, and so, like, the leadership is like saying, "Hey, this is how things work," and it's not at all how things work. Um, so, and they used to see that a lot, like in the early days when they used to do really, really intense. I don't want to say good. I don't want to say good or bad. It just like very, very serious um, specifications. You'd have these specifications that sort of described how something worked, but the underlying code did the same exact stuff, but it didn't do it the way the specification. Like the specification may define like a system that reads the radar, and when it does the radar, it does this and that and this and that. But it's like no, there's nothing like that. There's no system that reads the radar. All radar, all information of everything goes into some directory or some file somewhere, and then that file is parsed in general as part of the whole thing. But the thing is you want the specification to describe exactly what they want, not exactly what it does. But then they kind of got away from doing specifications like that. And so then sort of architecture sort of took the place of that. where the architecture defines what the thing is supposed to do, and then the developers are like, well, it's not practical to do this at this in this point the way this architecture works. So they end up just writing some code and making stuff work. And then yeah, it's a shit show. But the feature that we're trying to build here is when we resize this, we want this code to um, update. And then as a side effect to things that we're fixing, we actually did fix this aspect ratio. So the aspect ratio, I believe, is the width divided by the height. And we are actually resolving for that, but it isn't actually redrawing. So we went slowly but surely kind of building up the architecture or the foundation for this, and some things just magically fixed themselves as we built out the pieces um, of of that, and then some things didn't. And the thing that didn't was this Viz component doesn't redraw. So now we got to kind of think through that. And the thing is like the Viz component, it knows what width and height it's supposed to be, but it doesn't know, it doesn't ever, there's no code in here that responds to these changes. And then our visualization, but the thing that does know it would be the layout. So like in this custom layout, which is this layout, it already deals with size. And then in the tabular layout, it doesn't even care. That's this look. It could not care less. The visualization is not affected in any way, shape, or form by resize, but update is. So this is the first time that we have something, but but we do have a behavior that code already exists to deal with, but the code that already exists is not applicable to this update view. So that's why we had to start building out foundational pieces that handle all that. And that's just a reality that we deal with. So anyways, we ended up creating, going back and forth, we ended up creating like this viewport resize service because, and then a viewport service. At first, we built the viewport service in thinking, and if we look in there, basically what we've done is we've made it to where everything is has the ability to use the exact same internal way to determine the width and the height of the thing, of the application. And it seemed like it would be a good idea to put that other code for resizing in here. But then after interacting with ChatGPT a little bit, it became clear that no, we actually probably want to put this in its own, very own standalone service that only does that. And then it was like, okay, since we have this, well, let's go ahead and make it go through here. And then I realized, no, we don't want to go through here. There's absolutely no reason for anything to have to go through here to get the resize. Why add that layer of 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 um, abstractness? We don't need another layer in between there, and adding every time you add a layer, it makes it that much harder to reason about the code. So um, if you don't need to add a layer, even though it may seem like the most obvious thing in the world, it may not be. It may be a bad idea. And you have to constantly be revisiting this stuff, or you end up with, like, you don't want to have 30 layers of abstraction to do something, because that causes all kinds of problems. And obviously, every situation is different, but in my experience, I try really hard to only add layers of abstraction if it brings a benefit, and not to try to not use layers of abstraction if it doesn't bring a benefit. So, all along the way, we're changing mind. We go in a direction, we go, oh, okay, yeah, no, and we're changing our mind the whole way. And that's a very strong indicator that you don't know what you're doing, like that you haven't done this before. This is something that's new and novel to you, even though it seems very similar to something you did before. It's actually not. And it's good to know that, because you don't want to get caught in a rut and then end up doing something in a very stupid way. Um, and you will. You're 100% guaranteed to do things in a stupid way, because, the world is constantly changing. So today's smart thing is tomorrow's stupid thing. Today's pattern is tomorrow's anti-pattern. It's just, that's just the nature, and it happens fast in technology. It happens in everything, but some things can go on for decades or even hundreds of years and still seem smart, even though they're real dumb. It's just because we've been doing it that way for 100 years. That technology changes so fast, and so many new people come in all the time that it changes before, very, very quickly. Um, so, anyways, boom, it looks like in here we are actually listening for our visualization, and we do know the new height and width, and we are actually already passing, it looks like we're already passing our viewer height and width in, because these are what is known as a component attribute, and we already have component attributes, and if I remember correctly, we pass those component attributes into our, yeah, see, these are component attributes, and they get passed into this um, app viz. Now, the app viz treats this as a signal, and signals are pretty new are relatively new in Angular, and the way you listen to signals is through this effect function. To me, like anytime I see something like that, the way that is, since my very first introduction to that was that sort of concept where through decorators, I always think, oh, this is a decorator, but no, this is an effect function. And this effect function, I don't think works in JavaScript at all. And the browser is never even aware of the fact that this effect function um, ever existed. Like this never makes it to the browser. And my understanding is that effect, if I remember correctly, the effect function comes from um, EFGHI, comes from the core. So I believe we just type in effect here. Yeah. So this is a Angular core, believe in system function, and it is part of the foundation of it. It's very unlikely to change in a very dramatic way. Uh, at least it's unlikely that it's going to change in a breaking way since it's already to the core and it seems to be pretty stable. Um, it may change I think it has changed pretty significantly in the things that you can do and add to it, but I don't believe it's changed in the way it actually works uh, in a while. So now we have our effect, but effect I believe only has one argument. I believe it's just a function. Oh, 1 to 2 arguments. So it can get something on cleanup, which I don't think is um, thing. All right. No, I guess it's effect function, and then I guess it returns a cleanup a func a, I guess this returns a function and you give it. Yeah, I don't know. That's weird. I don't really understand this, but you get a create effect options, so you can pass in options. I think this stuff's pretty new. I'm not sure though. But anyways, what you do is you give this a something like that, and then you are listening to viz width and viz height. Um, and normally what you do is you end up assigning it to something. But I don't know. Let's say console.log. I don't know if we'll get an effect just anytime viz width or viz height change, or I don't think this will do anything because I think we have to actually like say like if viz width or something. We have to add some sort of behavior around that um, to get. So this is our hello world. So initially, so we might even it might even make sense to get rid of the code that's in our lifecycle hook. Um, because I think both happen. Um, or maybe we'll just we probably want to set a flag to say that the view has been, in fact, in, emitted and then handle everything from this effect. Now, I know that writing code, like we probably don't want to actually write any code in here. We just want to execute. Um, so because and it's only because I found it to be very, very difficult to unit test anything inside of this effect. So you can get it to run things, and so you can get your coverage, but like all the logic and everything you want it in another function that you can get at pretty easily. So um, so hello world and viewport changed, and see we didn't get another hello world. So that makes me nervous. Add viz. As you noticed, okay, so hello world got called again, and nothing. Okay, so what we're trying to figure out is, will hello world show up when I change the size of the screen um, while we're in update mode? Okay, so we are here. Now let's change this and see if we get a hello world. Nope. See, we get the viewport change, but we don't get the hello world. So what we want to do is, I guess, I don't know what to do. Maybe const height equals viz height, and then const width equal to this dot viz width. And now let's see if we get our hello world. When we change size. Okay, yes. So now we are getting it. And I guess it's just like a side effect. It's a side effect of asking for it. So somewhere behind the scenes, once we started asking for this stuff, there was code that was written by Angular that for JavaScript code that was written by Angular to run this block of code anytime one of these two changes. And there's just no telling what that code actually looks like or what it does. I mean, it probably wouldn't be that. It wouldn't be like there's no one trying to hide that from you. If you want, you can go figure that out. Um, but there is definitely, but it would. It's I guarantee it's not going to be like well, it could be a fun thing to do. Actually, I was wrong. It would definitely be a fun thing to do. Um, so I think what we can do now is we could say, instead of like just assigning these things, we could just pass it to another function. And I think that function will eventually be update dimensions, but I can't quite. There's too many sort of moving parts for me to picture it at this moment. So I'm just going to create another function. Okay. Uh, Update dimension signal handler. I'm adding the word signal. The only reason I added the word signal in is because the and height is because I don't want it to be like the word handler is very charged. There's lots of, oh my God, hemisphere light number, and I don't want to sort of um, um, I don't want to like make someone think this is like some kind of handler for like a DOM change or something, like a direct, like that. Okay, normally when something's named handler, most times, especially if you come from like a jQuery background or something like that, it's something that is like kind of set up in the template. And I don't want to imply that this was set up in the template. So that's why I added the word signal in there. Um, okay, so I'm going to say let updated equals false, and then return updated. And that'll make that little red line go away. And then instead of doing this assignment, and I'm running by the seat of my pants here, like this is not something that I do every day. As a matter of fact, like at my job, we don't have a version of Angular that is that that supports signals. And I don't really particularly like it's probably like it would have ideally um I don't even know. So like if you have code that is done, pretty much done, like all you're doing is just basic maintenance and stuff, it's probably okay just to have like an older version of Angular, especially if it's like newer than like 10. Um but or 10 or newer, um but if you're like actively working code and it's growing and you're making changes and stuff like that, you really do need to keep it up to date. Um, because new features are always coming out and you're probably going to want one of those new features in the new code. If you have old code that is being used and has been used for a long time, saying, hey, like, yeah, unfortunately, the version of Angular we're using doesn't support that. Um, it's probably okay, not always okay, but it's probably okay. It's probably going to be okay. Is it height? Did I put height first or width? No, I don't actually. Yeah, width and height. That is wild. Um, so I have this little random number generator thing in my head that I just will just swap things like that once in a while for no good reason. Kind of keeps me on my toes. So, and then we're just going to add signal caller here. And we'll come over here, come in here, go back to this view. It would be so nice to be able to add one and it just update. See, that's another thing that like I think people would want to call that a bug, right? And that like your BAs and people like that would be like, it's a bug that you can't in this view, that if there isn't one, you can't add one and look at it. But that's not a bug. That's something that needs to be analyzed and all that. So updated signal handler. Now let's try making this a little bigger. Yep. So updated dimensional signal handler. So that is working. It's getting called. It's getting called when we want it to be called, and we probably want it to actually do the update, but we probably don't. See, this is the kind of thing that can happen like hundreds of times, maybe 200, 300 times per second. So we don't want to actually update anything. We just want to set something to be updated. And I don't think this here, I don't believe that this, I think all you're doing is setting a variable. You're not actually, it used to be called causing a reflow. Um, I don't know if that's still what it's called, but I do not believe that this forces a a file the browser to actually redraw things, but it might. I don't think it does. I think there's enough there for ChatGPT to understand what I'm doing. So I have this code, so code in Angular. I actually like that Angulr. I guess they made a new little um, icon for Angular. It's like this little guy. It's really cute. I like it. Um, but you know, just had a reflow question. I'm going to leave it real basic because I think that is reflow is the correct word. Got it. Your question about whether this line causes a reflow. So obviously I'm using the here is clear as it does setting cause a reflow. Yes, this will affect the effects setting, but important it does not cause an immediate synchronous reflow by itself. Okay, so okay, so it is saying I should batch DOM writes. Okay, so a DOM write. I just want to get the words right. Yeah, is a DOM write. Okay, okay, so this line is being called when I resize, or is this line has the potential. So um, actively, and unless I specifically do something about it, about it, it will be called on resize, on browser resize, on viewport resize. Mm. Trying to figure out if I should batch this, should throttle this, should throttle. Yes, throttle or batch, but highly, or I guess even debouncing might be hundreds of times. So yeah, that's the thing is anytime you're dragging stuff around or moving stuff with your mouse or whatever, this is happening way more often than that event happens a lot more often than the screen redraws. So you don't want to redraw the screen and that because that is super expensive and it can cause the whole application to become very, very like I can't remember what the right word was for it, but like where everything just starts jumping around and all that. So even 200 times seconds point, yes. So recommended strategy for viewport. I love when they just throw words like that because I guess yeah, who knows what they're meaning. Whoever wrote that, sometimes they're trying to be kind of snotty, but sometimes they actually mean something. It's hard to know. Um, Remote once per frame. Yeah, jank is the word that's called. I know this word's never going to last. It's been called that for like 10 years though. So it's saying that I should do like reschedule request animation frame. Okay, I suspect I actually want to All right, so this element gets changed, but I probably don't want to change it here. I probably want to, I don't really want to tie it to the event because it's like it's getting here through an event. And I don't really, so I think what this is saying is anytime this happens, that to the request animation on the next animation frame, then go ahead and do the update. The problem is that, okay, it's window resize. And they're saying just go ahead and do this. But the thing is, okay, so in this situation, okay, so it seems like this request animation frame gets called more than one time. Seems like the request. I think this is a funny name too, animation frame, because like when I read this, because I come from like a working class background, I read this as like I'm making a request right now to do an animation frame. That's how I read that. But like if you're from like a more sort of leadership, I don't know, for lack of a better word, caste. If you're from like your family was not like, let's say all your family comes from like people who are like generals in the military or captains of ocean going vessels or something like that, then a request is like something that comes on a regular basis. It's like you get your form, and okay, in this month's request form, we want 30 shoes, 15 this, 12 that. But for me, a request is something that I asked for right now. So, but this is more like on that leadership cast. This is like something that happens around 60 times a second. And when that happens, we want to do this. This is called a lot, called um, hundreds times per second. So I believe this code as written would call that request animation frame hundreds of times per second. But I think what it's going to tell me, what I'm hoping it's going to tell me is that yes, that is the case, but it is tuned. It is set up to be able to get like the same 5 different requests for the same thing and only do the last one. It does not run hundreds. No. Okay, so it is called once per animation. Okay. See, this is where things get weird. Um, and okay, so request. Okay, okay. Wait, we got to get this straight. Okay, so okay, wait. And I'm not trying to get pissy here. I just really want to get this. I want to understand this right, and I think the information exists for me to understand this right. But right now, it's being said in. So the request frame only runs 60 times per second per second, right? Yes, it is a function you call. Okay. You're asking, hey, this function runs. Okay. Okay. So, see, then it goes into this stupidity again. Okay. 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 So I am calling more than 60 times per second when the user resizes. Right? Question mark. Step by step. Okay. Okay. See, it just goes into this crap, and I don't want to hear what 1,000 people who don't know what the hell they're talking about have said before. I want to understand it the way, you know, a more sort of stable way. Okay. Okay. So we have established that I am calling that function more than 60 times per second. So, and so let's see how this works. This now we've really gotten off. Yeah, so in here, so if I call this function 3 times, because that's what we're talking about, 3 times before the request, let's put this in parentheses, the request animation frame request animation frame function 3 times before the request animation frame executes. And and each one of them fires are attempts to change the element, the same element, then it will just do the last change. Then the request animation frame last change. Yeah, okay. That's what I want to know now. Let's see if it says something silly in here. Anyways, multiple times for the net. Suppose the browser hasn't executed the RAF. Okay, that's a good way to put it. The RAF. Next repaint hasn't happened. So you do request animation 100, 120. Yeah, so you're doing all 3 of those. You are scheduling 3 separate callbacks. All 3 callbacks are queued and will run in order in the next animation frame. So what actually happens, element you call the first 100, second 120, third 140. The final visible with. Okay. Why the browser batch styles internally. Okay, so this is basically, okay, so that's good. So it looks like I just need to put this in its own request animation frame. Now, will this result in that weird change executed before update Angular console log error. And Angular's changed after check territory. Let's unpack that. It's complaint about Angular throws that this. I hate this. Hate it. Take something bound to the template. Okay, so how this interacts. Current JS, Angular Zone JS. Okay, so I don't even think I use. I'm hoping I'm not using Zone.js. Like property bound. So apparently with this, I'm bypassing the template. So it sounds like this code up here, where I'm setting this viz width and height, like it's possible that this could cause that. And that's probably going to be completely outside of my control because it's bound with this signal. So hopefully the signal sort of handles that. But this, it looks like, since we're going straight to the DOM, at least at this point in time, it won't cause any kind of changes. Okay, no. Okay, so it looks like all I need to do is wrap this with, and I think I can even do that now. So I wonder if this might be the answer to that bug in general. The problem with that bug or that console error is that I've seen that console error appear after doing an upgrade from one version of Angular to another. It didn't exist in the previous version. Now it suddenly it starts showing up in the new version. So, so I think I want to do this. And then move this code into here. And I might want to comment that out and work on that. Let me just do this, just in case it breaks something. It shouldn't. Add viz. Update. Right, so this update dimension. So over here is where we want, what we're probably going to want to call this function and pass it all of this information. And we might very well want to call we probably want to call this with the actual like viz component, this render view child, and we might end up wanting to save like cache the whatever the last calculated one was or something like that. I don't know. There's probably a lot of different things that we might want to do, but I feel like as soon as we have this sort of played out all the way through, this this whole thing working properly, I think we will be feature complete. I think that basically all we needed to do is actually resize the image, and fortunately, this stuff all took care of itself. And like everything else is taking care of itself, right? Like these guys up here are taking care of themselves. These guys are taking care of themselves. We just have like one little, oh, can't really tell, but if we go boom, 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 and then see like this, I think this component, if it was bigger, it would do that. And then I think that everything else would figure out whatever it needs to figure out to put out. I think this is the only piece that's left. and then we'll be feature complete. And then this will be the first time where I try to do the commit directly as we do the feature, and then I mean without the unit tests, and then I'm going to go down the path of doing unit tests, and hopefully that goes well. Hopefully I don't have to do a massive refactor for that, and then if that goes right, then we'll do commit, and then we'll do a super commit. That we'll do the end-to-end testing. We'll definitely want to capture this feature in the end-to-end testing, and then we'll do the super Cypress commit, which is like, hey, this is a feature complete endpoint spot that we done. But at any point along the way, if we have to go back and do a bunch of code, um, we'll go ahead and do a commit again, um, and basically, hopefully, have a bunch of little mini commits until we get to the super commit. I think that will avoid the real major benefit of that is it's going to be like smaller commits. The major disadvantage of that is actual feature complete will be a collection of commits. Um, and then maybe it even makes sense. See, I don't want to go into branching until after I kind of get just the foundation built, but at that point, I guess we'll have like maybe it makes sense to have like getting started stash and whatever the feature is branch and have to do it that way. I don't know. Anyways, happy coding everybody. Have a wonderful day. Bye.